The following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Box score from Nedick's at the Old Garden on 49th Street. I'm Ralph Tycho with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and we've got a full house. George Case III is here. How you doing, George?
Hi, everybody.
David Hubler.
Hi. Hello.
Alan Blumpkin.
Hello there, everybody.
And the man himself, Hal Bock. Hal, I'm going to ask you, what's the score?
Well, the score tonight is bewilderment, I guess, because the Toronto Raptors, who had the best record in the Atlantic Division of the N.B.A. this season, second best record in the league, only to Houston, won 59 games, the best record in the history of the franchise, decided to fire their coach, Dwayne Casey. And this was a few days after Casey had been named Coach of the Year by the NBA Coaches Association. I find that remarkable. I mean, how can you win 59 games, have the best record in the history of the franchise, be named Coach of the Year, and then get fired? I mean, what are you supposed to do to keep your job? I don't know. So that was, I was kind of bewildered by that, and that's what I wrote about this week. And I welcome the thoughts of you guys about the vulnerability of coaches and how they're...
May I ask this first? Did he get along with his star player?
From what I understand, DeRozan got him fired.
Oh, well, you know,
okay.
That's fine.
And they said on...
DeRozan didn't get along with him, but the fact of the matter is the team won 59 games. That's pretty good.
It doesn't matter. If one of the stars and the people on around the horn said, and I agree with them, that DeRozan shouldn't have enough clout to get a coach fired. He's no LeBron, or he's no Harden, or he's no Curry. But from all the reports I've read on this, that he was very dissatisfied with the way Casey was playing him or not playing him, and he complained to the ownership. And it's easy to fire a coach than to fire 15 players.
Yeah, and Red Holtzman once told me that, he said, these guys are making a hell of a lot more money than I am. Who's going to go when the time comes? The coach. So, yeah.
That's pragmatic.
Well, let me jump in here a second. It's been a history of professional sports that, the coaches are hired to be fired. And there's been very few exceptions to that, other than maybe Red Auerbach in basketball with the Celtics. Who kicked himself upstairs. But, for the most part, you hire somebody and you're going to fire him. Now, I absolutely agree with Hal, though, and David, Norm, Alan, when you jump in here. But, to have a winning record and do as well as they did and then fire a coach who's been named the, top coach in the N.B.A., seems a little strange to me and a little bit premature. Now, that's just my opinion. I haven't followed it that closely, but it seems to me that somebody who's winning the kind of championship games that he has, and after 2 years you say, hey, thanks, but no thanks, what'd you do for me yesterday has no meaning on what we're going to do tomorrow. I think it is a little bit premature.
He was there for 7 years, and I guess the ownership was embarrassed by the way they lost 4 straight to the Cavaliers, especially the way it melted down in the first game and in the fourth quarter, and basically gave up the rest of the series.
Were they impressed by finishing first in the conference? Were they impressed by winning?
No, the regular season doesn't matter in the NBA. It doesn't matter.
That's ridiculous. I'm sorry.
Yeah, and it's also basketball is the easiest sport for a superstar because the rosters are so short for a superstar to get, or somebody considers them superstar to get a coach fired. Because the superstars.
The organization allows the players to call the shots. Then the organization is fundamentally weak, I think.
Who you think runs the Cavaliers? Tyronn Lue?
No, I understand that. LeBron is another case altogether. LeBron is probably the best player in the world.
Yeah,
and so
Michael Jordan ran the Bulls. Larry Bird ran the Celtics. Magic Johnson ran the Lakers.
Uh-huh.
how
And
come Steve Curry runs the Warriors?
Well, do you put DeRozan in those guys' class?
No. Absolutely. I said the panel was signed around the horn when this broke. Unanimously said that DeRozan should not have anywhere near the clout that the ones I mentioned have had.
I agree.
But the only
I agree too, Alan. I mean, those guys, they were all superstars, and they could pretty much call the shots, I guess, if they didn't get along with the coach. But in this
the ownership apparently agreed with this,
Yeah, I mean, I think it certainly is premature, and if they're listening to the star player who doesn't compare to Bird and Magic and Michael and LeBron, I think that's totally wrong. I just don't understand.
Of course it is.
This vision.
But none of you guys own the club, and neither do I.
Right.
And of course, you know that they won their first round of the playoffs. They beat Washington in the first round. So it's not as if they bailed out as soon as the playoffs began. They won a round. So, I mean, 4 games. They lost 4 games to Cleveland and LeBron. LeBron went off for 4 games.
Well, the end of the first game, they were throwing the ball away. I think they got something like 17 or 18 points in the last period. They took a big lead into the fourth quarter of the first game, and they wound up losing it. And then they, apparently, from what I saw, and I've watched a little bit more this year than I have in previous years, that they really were throwing in the towel.
Why would they do that?
Because they couldn't.
They want to get rid of them?
LeBron had them psyched out. They couldn't do anything with him.
LeBron didn't have the Celtics psyched out in the first 2 games of that series.
Well, yeah. Well, Celtics are, I think just a bit mentally tougher.
Maybe.
Yeah. Hey, playoffs guys. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say the playoffs have been something of a disappointment. There have been a lot of blowout games. I mean, Houston lost by 41 points the other night to Golden State. Houston had the best record in the league. So how do you lose by 41 points? I mean, it's like you didn't show up.
Yeah, they beat them by 22 in the second game. You figure that out. Yeah.
What's that? I didn't hear what you said, Alan.
Houston won by 22 points the previous game.
Okay.
So, I'm like you. I lost that game last night, even though it was only 9 points at the end, was never close, really. And, I am at a loss to explain how these teams can play so great one night and so badly the next night.
I mean, in general, the playoffs have lacked electricity, at least.
Oh, yeah.
We've seen a lot better postseasons in the past than we're seeing this year. And in the long run, I would not be the least bit surprised that for the 4th consecutive year, we're going to see the Warriors and the Cavaliers in the finals. That gets a little old, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, the Lakers and the Celtics play each other 6 times in the 1960s, 6 times in an 8-year period. But that was Russell and Sam Jones and Havlicek against Baylor and Weston for a couple of years, Wilt.
And I think St. Louis played a couple of years in there.
That was early. With Pettit and Hagan, that was early in the Celtic dynasty.
Okay. Guys, would you kind of refresh my memory and talk about, because we're talking about coaches, and with Larry Brown, there was a coach who was hired and hired and rehired and rehired and rehired, and apparently a genius. What was it with him? Where did he get the moniker of being a genius?
Well, he won championships. He won an NCAA championship, and he won an N.B.A. championship. Can't do much better than that. so that you're anointed when you do that. And the thing about him is that he was never comfortable for very long in any one place, and so he moved on.
I played against him. He wasn't so hot. I really did.
I bet you did. In New York basketball.
I thought he said the same thing about you, David.
Yeah, well, then he would have been correct. That's for sure. No, I was in the summer camp league working as a counselor years ago, and the owner of our camp prided himself on having a pretty good staff team. He had what's his name? We mentioned him last week. He grew up in New Jersey and played in the N.B.A. for a good number of years. I can't think of his name right now, but anyway,
Doug Moe.
No, I can't. Doug Moe didn't grow up.
Doug Moe from Erasmus.
No, I said he grew up in New Jersey. Anyway,
Doug Moe, not Doug Moe.
No.
Doug Moe.
Anyway, this other camp had taken on for the summer 3 of UNC's top players, including Larry Brown, and so we had to go out and play against Larry Brown's team. And the only player we had of any talent was a guy who played for William and Mary. And so he was the captain of our team, of course. And he decided that the only way we could beat Larry Brown and his buddies was to freeze the ball, like a 4-corner offense. And so we did. And it was like 8-7 at the end of the first half. and they were getting angrier and angrier. Anyway, make a long story short, we lost about 14-11 after this team went around the whole league in Pennsylvania and was beating teams by 30, 40 points. And for some reason, Brown picked on me as the ringleader of this plot, and he came after me, and they had to pull him off. He was I mean, he didn't throw a punch or anything, but he was bigger than I am, and it was really intimidating because he was so angry. That was my one on-court appearance with Larry Brown.
I hope we have some photographs of that, David.
I don't. I wish I did.
Oh, that's a marvelous story, David.
Yeah, it is. That's great.
What camp was this? Give credit to the camp.
That camp was Camp Kiuma, and our camp was Wequahic, the Indian name kind of things. And they were both from New Jersey. Ours was in South Orange, New Jersey, East Orange area. That's where most of the kids came from. And Al Adels, that's who used to come up every year and play.
Yeah, I'm friends with his son on Facebook.
But he didn't play. He didn't come up that summer.
Well, Al Adels was a terrific battler.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I think they called him the Battleship or something like that. He was one tough.
I'm friends with him, his son on Facebook.
Yeah.
Al Jr., yeah.
You and how many other people?
A lot.
Yeah, I figured.
Well, thank God for Facebook because it brings us all together. And if it weren't for that, I can't imagine having started this whole thing.
But I wanted to ask Hal a question since we were talking about the N.B.A. and everything. I mean, the Knicks fired Hornacek after 2 years. The Knicks have a habit of terrible teams, and they're always firing the coaches. And even in the front office, they haven't done very well. What's the story with the Knicks?
James Dolan.
They don't have any players. They don't have players.
Yeah,
a
James
coach
Dolan.
is only as good as the team the roster that you have to coach, and they have no NBA talent players as far as I'm concerned. The one that they had, Porzingis, is down. He probably won't play this season because he tore up his knee, and the rest of the roster is very, very mediocre. And how are you going to win with that kind of a roster?
They have no market value.
The new coach is a guy named David Fizdale, and it's interesting because Fizdale coached the Memphis Grizzlies, and he got into it with their star, Ginobili. Was that it?
No, Marc Gasol.
Oh, Casal, right, that's right.
Yeah, Mark Casal, yeah.
And Casal demanded that he would be fired, and he was. So Alan is right about the players calling the tune. And so he was fired and was available when the Knicks were looking for a new coach. And he signed, I guess, a 4-year contract. But I don't see how he's going to succeed any better than Kornacek or any of the others who've been marching through here. They've had 11 coaches since the year 2000 when Jeff Van Gundy left. That's remarkable. 11 coaches.
And Jim Dolan
they finish last or near the bottom, and they wind up with high draft choices, but they don't seem to get anybody worth playing.
Jim Dolan, the heir to the Cablevision empire, they own Madison Square Garden. He took over the team in 2001. Since 2001, they've had the worst cumulative record of any team in the NBA.
Wow.
And they lost you as a fan, right, Alan?
Yeah.
They lost you, I know.
It's not going to change in the foreseeable future.
Well, you can only draft one player, one decent player.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
So how far can you go with that, you know?
Well,
yeah, it's 1 out of 30.
So
1 out of 30. It used to be 1 out of
9.
9. Yeah, 8 or 9, yeah.
The N.B.A. is a league where one player can turn you around, though.
Well, yeah, but he needs a supporting cast. It's interesting. We're talking about one player. There's no better player in the NBA, as far as I'm concerned, than LeBron James. And in the middle of the season, LeBron forced the Cavaliers to turn over their roster. They made about half a dozen trades in one day or 2 days, and they got all new players in there. Why? LeBron whistles the tune, you know. And are they going to go to the finals? Probably. I think they will. I think the Celtics are a little too young, and they're just learning the game, and they're missing two of their main parts. Their best players are on the injured list. So when LeBron decides to take over, they're in a lot of trouble. And after Cleveland lost the first 2 games, it was as if they flipped the switch in Cleveland, and LeBron took off. And they're now tied 2-2. I guess Game 5 is tonight, maybe.
No, they played last night. Be tomorrow night.
Well,
they just played last night.
Now, right?
Yeah.
The series is 2-2, though, right?
Yeah.
All right, so they'll play tomorrow night. But I wouldn't bet against LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers at this point because he's LeBron James. He's the best player in the world. And what will that mean when he goes against the Golden State Warriors? I don't know. Probably not enough because Golden State has a roster full of stars. He's got a roster of 1 star. Cleveland has.
Yeah, he's got himself. I agree with you. And when you look at some of the past, NBA great teams, I mean, when you look at the Celtics and the Lakers and the Bulls, I mean, they had a superstar obviously, but they also had some other superstar supporting cast, which the Cavaliers don't have. I mean, they've got LeBron and he takes over and he's far and above anybody else. But when it comes to being a team game, I think certainly, the Cavaliers are not the kind of team that the Lakers and the Celtics and those great teams and the Bulls. I mean, they had, when you look at who they had, I mean, they had more than just, the Bulls had more than just Michael. I mean, they had Scottie Pippen, a great player. And of course Lakers had Magic and they had, Kareem and whatever and Baylor. Yeah. And the Celtics had, Russell and his supporting cast. I mean, basketball, I mean, I played basketball. Basketball's a team game, and it's really hard. If you have one superstar, if he takes over the game, that's fine, but he's got to play against 5 other guys. And, and sometimes that's what happens. The one guy does great, but, they wind up losing because they're losing to a better team.
Hey guys, it reminds me of Oscar back in the days playing on Cincinnati, being a superstar. He never won until he went to Milwaukee with Kareem late in his career.
Right. Yep.
So that there's a good analogy between LeBron and and Oscar. Oscar was
Big O.
By the way, I have a book to recommend to you guys. I just finished it last night. Just came out about a week and a half ago. It's the autobiography of Elgin Baylor. It's titled High Time.
Okay.
I'll never forget the first time I saw Elgin Baylor. We were in Madison Square Garden for a college doubleheader. NYU was playing the second game, David. The second game. And the first game was, they brought in a team from Seattle. Now, in those days, we did not have ESPN. We did not have the Internet. Anybody west of the Mississippi River you never heard of.
That's right.
Right? Am I right?
Yeah.
Here comes the University of Seattle, and there's this guy flying through the air. I'd never seen anything like it before in my life. This was Elgin Baylor.
Right.
What a magnificent basketball player he was. And he just stunned me when I saw him. And he did things that nobody else at that point had done. Now, along came Dr. J, and I saw Dr. J play in the N.B.A. with the old New Jersey Nets. With the New York Nets when he played at the Nassau Coliseum here on Long Island. And Dr. J was like a helicopter. I never saw anything like that before. He would take off at the foul line and head for the basket, and it would be like a whirlybird. So to me, even though LeBron is the greatest player in the world, I will never say anything against him. Russell was the greatest defensive player I ever saw. Wilt was an amazing force. Michael Jordan played above and beyond. But for me, personally, the two most amazing players that I ever saw were Dr. J and Elgin Baylor.
And my favorite was Oscar.
Not a bad choice. Oscar was not a bad choice.
Yeah, Elgin Baylor revealed in the book a couple of things which were very interesting. One was that he was colorblind. There's a story in there that when he finally came into some money after the Lakers moved out to L.A. and he bought a pink Cadillac, and he didn't know it was pink because he couldn't see color. And he took it home, and his wife made him change it.
Did he buy it from Mary Kay?
Yeah, I don't know. And the other thing
Very
is
good,
that
that was good, David. He got a heck of a deal on it.
He goes into the Chamberlain.
Free cosmetics for life.
Yeah, he said when Wilt came there, Wilt was refused to practice. He was very disruptive. He was very unsocial, and he and the coach Van Bredikoff, who held him out not only in that last game of the last player for Russell, last time the Celtics beat them from that era, but he held Chamberlain out of games during the season for malcounts. And he and Chamberlain, they said they had to break up a couple of times. They had to break up potential fights between Chamberlain and Van Bredikoff.
Well, I would
not want to fight Wilt Chamberlain.
The Van Bredikoff.
You don't want to fight Wilt Chamberlain.
No. Van Bredikoff liked the sauce quite a bit.
Well,
former coach at Hofstra University.
Yeah, and Princeton.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mel Counts, was he from USC?
No, Oregon State.
Oh, okay.
He was a backup to Russell for a few years and had the biggest feet, I think, this side of Bob Lanier, who's a much better player than Counts.
Bob Lanier had it like an 18 shoe.
Yeah.
Bigger than that. He was size 22, Ralph.
Yeah, you would know, right? I mean,
he played at St. Bonaventure, and I'll never forget. We went up there, and I thought, we're going to get a chance to get Bob Lanier wearing our basketball shoes. And he said to me, he said, "Well, I need a 22." And I went back to our factory people, and I said, I got to get a 22. He said, "Well, you better get somebody else because we can't make anything that big."
Oh.
Esquire magazine ran a full-size picture of his foot along with Muhammad Ali's fist. so you could compare.
I remember that.
Remember? Yeah. Oh my God, Ali Smith was like this.
You put your fist right on.
Yeah. Yep. Mm-hmm.
On the paper
and the shoe and his Lanier's shoe spread across the spread of the story.
Right. St. Bonaventure in those days, did you go up and meet Tommy and Sam Stiff, George?
Yeah, well, they were great players. St. Bonaventure for many years was a terrific basketball school.
Right.
Absolutely.
John Thompson played for them. Right?
And
yeah, I think so. David,
they next draft Tommy Stiff. He gets tuberculosis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was good. He was really good. They end up with his brother Sam, who was not so good. But
yeah, I always wondered how the Knicks managed to miss out on Bias.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Len Bias missed out on Len Bias, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah. I assume that the Knicks had such trouble with draft picks over the years that they would have drafted him.
Yeah.
I got a question about that, Alan, while you're talking, and how, the Knicks, when I was growing up, they were such a terrific team, and they had so many great players. What happened to that organization? I mean, when Holzman, they won all kinds of titles, and they had Willis and Frazier and Archibald. They were great
and they
teams.
didn't replace them.
They started getting a little long in the tooth, and after Reed and DeBusschere retired after the same year.
Right.
1973, 1974. They went into a free fall. They had Monroe and Frazier, but they couldn't funnel down an opposing player down the middle where a Reed or somebody like that would be waiting for them.
Right.
And then
what they had was Neil Walker and John Giannelli.
Frazier to Cleveland.
Yeah. What the Knicks had at that point were Tom Riker, John Giannelli, and Neil Walker. Somebody asked me why they got Neil Walker. I said, so somebody will have Holtzman have somebody go to the synagogue with on road trips.
That was a pretty awful collection of players.
Yeah.
And it continues to this day.
Yeah.
I defy you to name five Knick players who were legitimate NBA star caliber players. You can't do it. They don't.
Well, you had the Ewing Oakley for 4 or 5 years. Yeah, 1 or 2 years with Bernard King before he blew his knee out, and that's been it.
Willie Knowles.
That's what I'm saying. And yet they sell out the Garden every night.
Yeah, well, these people are foaming at the mouth. Though. The attitude probably is if I give my tickets up and they get good, I'll cut my throat. And I asked a guy I used to work with years and years ago why he still held, and this is in the mid-'70s, still held season tickets to the football Giants, and that's what he told me. He said, if you ever get good and I can't go to the games, I'll cut my throat. But the Knicks, forget it. Not as long as this. The Giants eventually realized that they had to do something. The Knicks will never do that.
Right.
And Hal's right. That they have, outside of Porzingis, they don't have a player on that team that's a consistent NBA player who has any market value.
They've got like 4 point guards, none of whom is particularly effective. And don't be surprised if they don't draft a point guard at the NBA draft in June.
I think whoever
that's how they
draft
operate sometimes.
However they draft, they'll screw it up.
Yeah, you're right. They have a terrible record of draft choices. Porzingis has been very good, but I was talking to a doctor friend of mine the other day, and he said, you know what? He's too tall. He's gangly and not coordinated properly. And when you get to be that height, which is in his case, I guess he's about 7'4". Alan, would you say 7'4"?
I think about 7'2". It was a credit.
7'2".
Yeah.
He says you're not coordinated properly, and you're easily injured. And he's got a history of injuries.
Yeah, I know.
A lot.
Even from his Latvia days, yeah.
Well, I remember the Knicks drafted Swede Holbrook one year.
Oh God, yeah.
And he was the most uncoordinated. He couldn't tie his shoelaces.
Was he a Knick? I don't remember him as a Knick.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, he was.
Wow.
Swede Holbrook. Yep.
But I did that name John Giannelli was a callback.
Yeah.
I got to ask George for an update on the shoe scandal, if you'd be so kind.
Well, I think things are sort of quiet. I don't know whether the investigations are ongoing or whether they have decided not to publicize all this stuff. But, for a couple of weeks there, as we've talked about before, the shoe scandals were, front and foremost in everybody's mind. And to be honest with you, I have not heard, where we stand with all that. So I have to think that there's a lot of investigating going on, and they're looking to, maybe have some indictments or whatever, but they want to get all their ducks in a row before they start to bring out a lot of publicity. That's my opinion.
Are these shoes?
There was an outrageous piece of news that came out of Louisville the other day. Louisville is right in the middle of this scandal. Thank you, Rick Pitino. And they fired their AD, Tom Jurich. They came to a settlement. He got $4.5 million in a settlement. Listen, sign me up. I'm more than willing to, $4.5 million.
You know what? Hey, Hal, I absolutely agree with you. And I've been talking, earlier about the amount of money that's being, paid to these guys. I mean, what Patino was making and Jurich and, that kind of stuff. So when they have these buyouts, that's why sometimes they try to fight the deal if they've got it in their contract. But, to get rid of somebody, say, hey, goodbye, but here's your settlement, $4 million. That's just incredible.
Oh,
you can't blame the coach for taking the bucks. It's the system that makes it possible.
Sean Miller, who was the coach at Arizona, who was backed up by, the administration there, has a clause in it. When this was going around, he had a clause in his contract that if he gets paid twice as much severance as if he gets fired for cause than he does if he doesn't get fired for cause. Think about that for a second.
Yeah, well, you know what? You'd like to find out who his agent is that get that kind of a contract. That's amazing. And I've been around, as I've said before, a lot of these guys and their agents, and these fellows, they hire some of these wonderful agents, and they negotiate a contract, and the schools are so happy to get a big name coach, they'll agree to a lot of things. And the coach is pretty much, he'll do whatever he wants to do, but he represents the school a heck of a lot more than the president of the school or anybody else. When you look at Louisville, that was Rick Pitino. That's who it was.
I'm curious what the panel thinks the impact of this scandal, this continuing scandal, will have on college basketball, say, for next season. Do you think it will still be a big deal, or do you think people will sour on it?
Well, my opinion, Hal, I'm just looking at it now as a layman. My opinion is that the bar is so big with the NCAA and March Madness and all that they'll try to keep as much under the newspaper headlines as they can, because this is a big, huge moneymaker for the NCAA, unless somebody, says, okay, we got to clean up this thing, and they start to really clean it up. And just not, talk about one or two teams when, in fact, I can tell you that these abuses have been going on for a long time, and it's a heck of a lot more than what's just out there in front of the public.
I was also amused.
Some congressman will step up and try to make a name for his or herself, and that could fuel the fire.
I was amused by the fact Duke University, which has got a great reputation, academic reputation, and for the longest time graduated all of their athletes, Duke University's entire starting lineup, the starting five, has declared for the N.B.A. draft. So that's the group, And that's outrageous to me. How do you root for a team and your entire team is gone, and next year you have to start over again,
Right.
And don't for a moment think I'm looking for sympathy for Coach K, because he's got a great class coming in, I'm sure. He's a terrific recruiter, and he won't be hurt. But it's just crazy. I think as a fan, I want to develop some attachment to these players and root for them over a period of at least 2 years, maybe 3.
Yeah, you watch them get better. That used to be the fun of it.
Exactly.
Right. And then you had something to talk about in your dotage. I mean, these guys, I remember when so-and-so played, that kind of thing. You wouldn't remember them. They're only there for one season.
That's right.
Well, it's up to the N.B.A. to get rid of the one and done.
Like that.
They're the ones that are requiring it.
That's changed the landscape a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, when you look at Duke over the years, or North Carolina over the years, or some of the great college teams, I mean, as we've talked about here, I mean, you're looking at players who've been there 3-4 years, and that's who, built the reputation of that school. I mean, the way it is now, and what Hal's saying, I mean, here is the entire starting five of Duke declaring for the N.B.A. draft. I mean, that is really clean in house. I mean, those kids might know something, and that's why, they're being advised by their agents to, declare for the draft, because you're going to make a lot of bucks.
Well, if you're in a situation like my alma mater was, where you won no conference games in 19 tries last year, and you fired the coach, and then most of their players decide to transfer out, which was good, and then they bring in Jeff Capel, who was the top assistant to Krzyzewski, and they're apparently getting some very good recruits already, and obviously it depends on how long they wind up staying there.
Right. Yeah, if they're good recruits, Alan, and they're there for 1 year, then they say, "Oh my gosh,
that's the same thing."
All over
again. Same thing, yeah.
Now, here, I'll give you an example. You know that my son and my money went to Syracuse University.
Yeah.
So I have an affinity for SU and for Coach Boeheim. They had a hotshot recruit that they pulled, that they not drafted, but signed, and he was supposed to be like top 5 nationally, and he signed his letter of intent. And he decided at the last minute, I think I'll go play pro ball. And he's going to play in the D League next season instead of playing in college. And so they lost that recruit. And I can understand why. Because the D League pays a minimum salary of $30,000. Well, that's $30,000 more than this kid has ever seen. And the lure of that took him away from Syracuse.
I think that if they get rid of the one and done, that type of thing is going to happen a lot more.
Well, just simply say we're semi-pro. We're a club team. We're club teams, and we represent the university, and but we're not students at the university. You got to pay us something to do this. What galls me is when a kid goes to the mall and he sees his shirt, his uni, with his name on it, and it's being sold, and he gets no profits from it. That's galling to the kid. It's not the kid's fault. It's the system's fault. In the same way, it's not the coach. It's not the player's fault for accepting, or the coach's fault for accepting these outrageous contracts. So.
Yeah, well, it's not galling to the kid that really wants an education. Unfortunately, too many of them are there just as a stepping stone into the N.B.A.
Well, they are. They're
or the NFL.
David, you're right. I mean, they're what you could call hired hands. I mean, they're there to play basketball or football or whatever the sport is. Very few are really student athletes, as we've talked about before, where you might see a true student athlete at a Division II or III or a mid-major, but at the top level, very few of them are really, top-notch students. Now, there are exceptions. I had mentioned before, Bill Bradley at Princeton was certainly one of them, but by the greatest fact is the fact that very few of them really are true student athletes. They're there to be there to play basketball or play football, and class is not something that they're being asked to attend. Or if they do, they're going to have basket weaving or fundamentals of basketball or some gut course will be given to them. Or like in the case of, I think it was North Carolina, you're going to have the scandals of people taking exams for these players.
Yeah, and it's a drop in the bucket. But think about the money. The money
when that story broke about taking exams for players and writing papers for players, North Carolina won the national championship that year.
They did.
That's
how
right.
could they have been allowed in the tournament?
They got a slap on the wrist.
I don't understand.
From the NCAA that did nothing. Yeah.
Because they draw.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Of course.
It's like the Yankees.
All the money.
Yeah.
No
Speaking
question.
of money,
the dollar signs, dollar signs are there, and I've said it in other sports. I mean, it's the tail wagging the dog. I'm telling you that the money is so huge, and the NCAA and television and the Final Four and March Madness. I mean, North Carolina, they're a major draw, and no question. If you have, I can tell you right now, if you have somebody like Podunk U in the Final Four, the Final Four will be a disaster as far as the ratings are concerned.
Yeah. Just think about the money that the universities spend. Division I universities spend. I know it's a drop in the bucket overall, but the money that they spend to recruit these kids, and they get them for a year. I mean, if you amortize that over 4 years, it probably is a worthwhile investment. But 1 year, they're throwing money away.
They sure are.
But the athletic department runs on a total different basis from the rest of the university.
Well, sure.
Yeah. I know that.
You don't find too many professors making $6 million a year.
I know that from Pitt. Yeah.
That's for sure. Let me ask you guys this: when you refer to Bill Bradley as that student athlete, got to remember that he played like 45 years ago.
Yeah.
There aren't many since then.
He's my age.
You ever hear the expression academic All-American?
No.
It never comes in anywhere. And that used to be, as a kid, you look at these guys, you read the program, not just basketball, football. A lot of guys that you're watching, kid is impressed by that. Me, knowing that I'd have no chance of either being an academic All-American or an All-American All-American. So it was particularly impressive. But that's out of the realm of it, and it's semi-pro.
It is. That's exactly what it is, Ralph. Yeah.
You have to take it for that. I enjoy minor league baseball. There should be no reason I can't look at college basketball in the same way, developing for the future, this, that, and the other thing. It's sad, very sad, because those teams that you, David, and Hal covered with NYU, I was a little younger watching those guys as a fan. You were writing about them and what have you. But I was an impressive fan, and to see them change from year to year and get better and what have you, that's one of the highlights of my memory bank.
I wonder. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But I just wonder what this new ruling that came down from the Supreme Court about legalizing gambling what kind of effect that's going to have on Division I basketball. I mean, that's the area that's always been ripe for scandals, and now they're going to have legalized betting. It's totally unknown territory.
I think the NCAA is going to fight. Pro leagues are not going to.
How can you fight it? I mean, it'll be each state can. What? It's the law of the land, right? Each state can decide how they're going to enforce it. They've got a green light, literally, for legalized gambling in all 50 states.
Well,
David, let me ask you something.
Under the table, it's so prevalent and been under the table for so long. What the states are looking for is a little bit of share in the revenue kind of thing.
And we all know that gambling is immoral until the state gets its cut. it's cut.
Right.
George, let me ask you this. I haven't followed. I obviously I knew the headlines and what the change is, but does that legalize gambling? Does that apply to all sports, including college sports, or is it just professional sports?
No, as far as I can tell, it's
open.
all. Yeah, wide open.
So it's wide open. So if people are now going to start looking at point spreads in football or basketball in colleges, I mean, they're betting on those college sports rather than just the pro games.
That's right.
Oh, yeah, what else is going to bet on Saturday in October?
You know,
baseball
I remember the New York Times, and Al, correct me if I'm wrong, but the New York Times for many years never published the point spreads.
No.
You're right.
They've tried to prevent, but now I think they do now, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know.
I think they do. I think they do.
And they certainly will when it, in New York City.
So the tabloids have every
will
step.
be hurt by this. The guy on the corner bookie is going to be hurt.
Oh, sure.
Have betting callers.
Well, the tabloids here, the Post and the Daily News, during the pro football season, they have, the bettor's guide to the NFL, and they have these geniuses, pick the games every week, and none of them can finish at 50%.
Well, let me tell you something. There's an analogy that I have.
Yeah.
They just legalized cannabis in California, and now that the state is getting their more than fair share, it turns out that they're going to get an awful lot less in overall tax revenue because people are fed up and are going back to black market stuff. They're buying under the table in the same way they always bought. And I think once they put these programs in, states, cities, they get greedy for taxes, and they're going to take too much of the action, and your local bookie will do just fine. That's my guess.
Yeah, a friend of mine who does this, he told me that he deals with an offshore account. He says, if you think I'm going to pay taxes to the state for the right to do this, you're nuts.
Yeah. Everybody, when it comes down to it, has an aversion to paying taxes, which is kind of funny in a way. They want the social programs that go with it, but
pay for it. The social programs.
Yeah.
Pay for
it. When it comes to that,
well, sure.
Yeah.
I'd like to offer you guys, as part of this discussion of betting, I'd like to offer you guys a sure thing. How's that?
Okay.
You don't ordinarily get a sure thing. I'm going to offer you a sure thing. We opened this discussion tonight about Dwayne Casey, who was fired by the Toronto Raptors 2 days or 3 days after being named Coach of the Year by the N.B.A. Coaches Association. Well, the Coaches Association is one designation. The official Coach of the Year will be announced by the N.B.A. at the end of June. And I'm going to tell you a sure thing. Dwayne Casey is going to win that award again. So he's going to be a double winner of Coach of the Year and out of a job.
He's lucky because if the Knicks job was open, they could have been convinced to take that.
I was going to ask you guys whether or not the Knicks would have wanted him had they.
It doesn't matter who the Knicks get. Between Nolan's interference and the ineptitude of the front
players,
office.
whatever coaches, right, Al?
Yeah.
They'll fuck it up. Excuse my language, but they will. They'll mess it up. It's the way of it. Your New York Knickerbockers. I miss.
Not mine.
Well, still mine in my heart. You root for a team all these years.
I know. It's tough. I don't believe so.
They wear you out. They wear you out.
They wear you out.
You're a fan, and I'm a fan. Certainly now that I'm no longer a professional writing, covering games, I allow myself to be a fan, but they wear you out. For example, I give you the New York Mets. I can't watch the New York Mets because they play a game with which I'm not familiar. Their fundamentals are missing. They make mistakes. All kinds of bad stuff happens to them. And I refuse at my age to aggravate myself about the New York Mets.
You know who they signed today?
You're a fan, But at the same time...
You hear who the Mets signed today, Hal?
I'm sorry, what? Yeah, I know who they signed today. He's older than I am.
Batista.
I know, he's older than me.
He's terrible. He's 200 last year. Couldn't hit with the Braves. What kind of value does this guy have? Nothing.
Well,
you can't get rid of him
for themselves in a position where they
for
only
a loaf
have
of
3
bread.
outfielders, and all of them were left-handed hitters.
Yeah.
So at least he's a body, you know. But
and I wonder if he's going to draw some Latin fans.
No,
that's not.
He's way past his prime.
No, it's a body.
They couldn't even get a loaf of bread for him.
Yeah.
So I mean,
well, let's give them some credit. They got a pretty good catcher for Harvey. They ended up with a very decent.
If he could stay healthy.
Well, if you want to have a nice, calm summer, root for the Yankees. They're looking like they're going to win.
I refuse to root for the Yankees.
Oh, come on!
Rooting for General Motors.
I know that's an old saw, but it's a lot less aggravating, even when they don't win the division or the World Series. To root for a winner, you know what you're getting.
When I talk to my son and we ruminate about the Mets and their hardships, and I say to him, this builds character rooting for the Mets. You'll appreciate it in your old age. You'll build character.
I don't know what rooting for them. What's the rooting for the Knicks build?
My character with the Mets was built in 1963 when they were as bad, almost worse. Not on their one-loss record, but they were horrible in '63.
They only got shot out 30 times.
No, 62 was that. Wasn't that 62 was the first year?
Yeah, they started in 62, but the second year when
they got shut out 30 times.
Yeah. Losing wasn't fun. It was so cute that the Mets lost. The second year I was about to spit up.
What was it Casey Stengel said? Can't anyone here play this
game?
Yeah.
The problem with 63 is that after 62, for some brilliant reason, they widened the strike zone and brought in the second era of dead ball from 63 to 68.
Didn't know that.
Yeah.
I know they lowered the mound in after 68.
They expanded and they lowered the mound.
Yeah.
To equalize it, but 68, if you remember, and nobody hit in 68. The All-Star game.
But then in McLean won 31 games.
And Gibson had an ERA of 112.
I think Yastrzemski hit 301 and won the batting title.
The Yankees had 214 as a team and finished 183 games. Yeah. And the All-Star game that year was 1-0, and the run scored when somebody got into a double play with the bases loaded and nobody out.
That's all Mets.
Okay, I'm losing my phone.
All right. Hey, guys, this was a good one. I really enjoy your company. I got to tell you that. I got to reiterate to you what a privilege it is for me to learn from you guys.
Take care, everybody.
All right.
Good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Memorial Day weekend.
Thank you, everybody, for listening. Be well.
Bye-bye now. Thank you.
Adios.